What if I told you this couple lost everything at 70 and got it all back, without money, without help from their children, and without leaving home? A realistic, raw, but deeply human story, where what looked like the end became a new beginning. Esteban and María Teresa, a Latin American couple in their 70s, spent most of their lives as devoted parents and successful business owners. They raised 3 children, David, Andres, and Camila, with love, comfort, and everything they believed was enough to secure their future. But they forgot to teach them the most important thing: how to stand on their own. Over time, their children took advantage of their trust, got them into debt, abandoned them, and left them with no home, no business, and no family. At that age, with nothing in their hands but memories and a cup of coffee every morning, Esteban and María Teresa thought their story was over. But a chance encounter at a community cultural center offered them something unexpected. A new opportunity, simple but powerful. Without knowing much about technology, without contacts, without money, but with dignity, they stepped into something unknown. Not because it was trendy, not even out of desperation, but out of pride. And without realizing it, they became an inspiration to hundreds. Today, their lives don't revolve around their children or what they lost, but around what they chose to build after 70. Purpose, community, freedom. They don't have luxuries, but they have peace. They don't have an inheritance to leave, but they leave a legacy. And it all began with a decision. Not a company, not a promise. A decision. The house always smelled like coffee in the mornings. María Teresa woke up before the sun, not because she had to, but out of habit. After more than 40 years of marriage, her body had learned to rise before the clock. She walked barefoot down the long hallway, the one that once echoed with 3 children running. Now only returned the sound of her own footsteps. She set the coffee pot on the stove, pulled out 2 cups from the cabinet, the same ones as always, and placed them on the large dining table. That table had seen everything: school homework, family arguments, birthdays, Christmases, signed contracts, toasts for success, and uncomfortable silences no one knew how to fix. Esteban sat in his usual chair, reading the newspaper, though not with the same interest as before. He flipped pages more out of inertia than curiosity. "You dreamed about them again today," María Teresa said as she poured the coffee. Esteban looked up. "The kids?" She nodded slowly. "Back when they were little, they ran through the yard. Camila fell and you lifted her into your arms." David laughed. Andres shouted that it was his turn on the swing. Esteban barely smiled, one of those smiles that mixes tenderness with exhaustion. "We were good parents," he said. María Teresa sat across from him. "We were very present parents," she corrected. "But I don't know if we were good teachers. They didn't always have so much." Esteban started as an employee at a small transportation company. He worked overtime, weekends, holidays. Sometimes he came home with dirty hands and a broken back, but with eyes full of plans. María Teresa sewed clothes for neighbors, then for small shops, and later opened her own workshop. They grew together, built their life together, and when the children arrived, they swore those kids would never suffer what they had suffered. That promise, over time, became their biggest mistake. They paid for the best education for David, the oldest. They funded every idea Andres ever had, and Camila, the youngest. They spoiled her with care, gifts, and attention. They never said no. They never let them lack anything. They never taught them how to get back up on their own. David worked in Esteban's company for a few years, but soon grew tired of taking orders. He wanted his own business. Esteban supported him without hesitation. "He's your son," María Teresa would say. "If you don't trust him, who will you trust?" Andres was different. A dreamer, restless, always with a new revolutionary idea that needed investment. And Dad was always there, to sign, to guarantee, to cover. Camila, Camila was the princess. Maria Teresa dressed her, protected her, defended her from everything. When she got married, the wedding was bigger than they could afford. But that didn't matter. It's just money, they said. Family comes first. They didn't realize they were buying short-term peace with their future. The walls were filled with photos, graduations, trips, parties, grandchildren being born. From the outside, anyone would say it was the perfect family. But with time, visits became shorter, calls became rarer, and conversations became more transactional. Dad, I need you to help me with this. Mom, could you transfer me some money? Just this once, I promise. And they always said yes, because they were parents, because they loved them, because they still didn't understand that love without limits can also destroy. One afternoon, Maria Teresa felt ill. The doctor spoke of stress, accumulated exhaustion, and that she needed rest. Esteban called the children to ask for help, even just for a few days. David was busy. Andres was traveling. Camila had commitments. Next week for sure, they said. That next week never came. That night, Maria Teresa stared at the ceiling for hours. Do you realize something, Esteban? She whispered. We gave them everything, and now they can't even give us time. Esteban didn't answer, but for the first time he felt fear. Days later, while reviewing paperwork, he found things that didn't add up. Strange transactions, debts he didn't remember, his signatures on documents he couldn't believe he had signed. Trust, the thing he had handed out his entire life, was starting to collect its payment. He didn't know it yet, but he was already falling. And the worst part wasn't losing money. It was discovering too late that he had raised children who knew how to receive, but didn't know how to hold anything up. The blow wasn't a scream. It was silence, the kind that spreads like a cold shadow through a house. There was no scandal, no slammed door, just Esteban standing in front of his study desk, with papers in his hands, wearing the face of someone who has just understood he was betrayed by his own blood. Maria, he said, in a voice that didn't sound like his. Come here for a moment, please. She came from the kitchen, drying her hands with a towel. What is it? He sat down. His fingers trembled. There are debts, big ones, under the company's name, signed by me. But I don't remember approving any of this. Maria Teresa read the pages in silence. At first she didn't understand, but with every line, her stomach tightened. David, she whispered, almost breathless. David, Esteban confirmed without lifting his head. And Andres. Their names show up in the transfers, and here, he pointed to another document. They used the house as collateral. The house? Our house? Esteban looked at her with broken eyes. If we don't pay this, we lose it. They called them that same afternoon. David didn't pick up. Andres sent a voice note. Dad, I'm in meeting. We'll talk later. Camila was the only one who answered, but her tone was evasive, uncomfortable. Mom, don't drag me into this. I didn't know anything. Besides, you always said if you ever needed us. We need you now, Maria Teresa interrupted, her voice steady. We just want you to help us organize this. Understand what happened. I can't, Camila replied with an annoyed sigh. I'm in a complicated moment. I really can't. The silence that followed hurt more than any words. The days turned confusing. Between lawyers, calls to the bank, and visits to the office, where people didn't even look at them the same, Esteban aged 10 years in 1 week. They sold the car, then some jewelry, then furniture, then artwork they had brought from Europe. And still, it wasn't enough. A bank employee explained there were no options left. They had to hand over the house, or face a lawsuit that would take even their pension. Hand it over? Esteban repeated, not believing it. It's the only way to close this without ending up on the street, said the man, without looking up from the document. Maria Teresa woke early on moving day. She made coffee out of habit, but she didn't pour it. She sat in the living room with boxes around her, staring at the empty walls. Esteban entered quietly and sat beside her. never thought we'd end like this. She looked at him. Do you know what hurts most? She asked. That none of them are here, not even to help us pack. Esteban clenched his jaw, holding back tears. I don't blame them, he said. I just don't understand. Maria Teresa stood and walked to the doorframe. There were pencil marks with dates and heights, where they measured the kids every year. She ran her finger over a line that read, Camila, 9 years old. Here we raised them, and here they brought us down. It was small, soulless, without history. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that smelled like dampness, and a view of the building wall next door. It wasn't the space that hurt. It was the absence of everything that made a home. That first night, they ate bread with butter and tea. They didn't have the strength to cook. They didn't talk. Silence returned. But now it wasn't cold. It was heavy. Like a wet blanket no one can shake off. Before sleeping, Maria Teresa held Esteban's hand. And now, we survived, he answered, but he didn't believe himself. Days went by slowly. Esteban stopped opening the newspaper. Maria Teresa stopped fixing her hair like before. They moved through the apartment like ghosts, facing each other without knowing what to say. One afternoon, he stared at his phone for a long time. Are you waiting for them to call? She asked. No, he said. I'm waiting for the habit of waiting to go away. Maria Teresa looked at him. In her face there was something beyond sadness. Resignation. No children, no grandchildren, no name. There were no birthday calls, no check-ins, not even for Christmas. And then they understood, though they didn't say it out loud. They no longer had children. They had memories. And memories don't call, don't hug, don't ask if you've eaten. But something else began to grow, slowly, like a seed buried under hopelessness, the suspicion that maybe they could live without them. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to find out. The calendar showed another month, but inside the apartment time no longer existed. Maria Teresa used to say that when you stop having something to look forward to, days become identical. And that was exactly what they lived, a sequence of hours going nowhere. Esteban woke up late, turned on the TV without sound. Sometimes he just stared at the black screen. Maria Teresa cooked the bare minimum, read the same books over and over. They both avoided talking about the past. But they also avoided talking about the future. Until one day, without looking for anything in particular, something different appeared. It was a small flyer, printed on recycled paper, with letters that looked like they belonged to another era. Wellness gathering for older adults talks. Community, opportunities. Every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Neighborhood Cultural Center, free entry. Maria Teresa left it on the table without saying anything. The next day, Esteban found it beside his coffee cup. Do you know what this is? He asked. They left it in the mailbox. Do you want to go? He raised an eyebrow. Go where? To watch old people talk about vitamins? She shrugged. We're doing nothing, Esteban, and nothing is exhausting. The building was modest. Peeling walls, plastic chairs, a coffee machine in the corner. But when they walked in, they found something they didn't expect. Life. Older people laughing, sharing stories, talking about books, kids, grandkids, plants, recipes. They weren't complaining. They weren't crying. They weren't living in the past. They were there, present. A woman with contagious energy greeted them. Hi, are you new? Yes, Esteban said with some embarrassment. We were business owners. Here we all used to be something, she replied. I was a history teacher for 30 years. Now I'm an entrepreneur. A YouTuber even, she laughed. You? Maria Teresa asked, amused. Me. My name is Isabel, but they call me the boss. Not because I boss people around, because I decide for myself. And here, that's what we teach. Isabel gave a short talk. Not about illnesses or retirement. She spoke about purpose, independence, community. She mentioned that there was a platform many people there were using to build something from home. You don't need to be young, she said. You only need two things, a story and a decision. She didn't give many details. She didn't say the name. But she dropped phrases like seeds. We don't sell, we share. We don't force, we inspire. Your age doesn't matter. Your will does. Esteban and María Teresa looked at each other. They didn't speak. But something had shifted. Before they left, Isabel approached them. Did you like it? It was interesting, Esteban said, trying to sound skeptical. You know what was most interesting, Isabel asked, looking straight into their eyes. That you two shouldn't be here. Not because of your age, but because of what you're carrying. María Teresa tensed. And what are we carrying? Pain and guilt. I see it all the time. Parents who gave everything and ended up with nothing. But what I like about you is that you still have something many people don't. Dignity. A brief silence. If you decide to come next Wednesday, Isabel continued, bring a notebook and a phone. That's all you need to start over. On the way home, they didn't talk about it. But that night, Esteban turned on his old laptop again. It was covered in dust, but still worked. María Teresa pulled out a notebook and wrote a sentence without overthinking. What if there's still something left to do? The following Wednesday, they returned. They didn't expect anything to change, but something did. Isabel showed them how to open an account, how to share their story, how to use simple tools to reach other people like them. She spoke about wellness, but not only physical, emotional, financial, personal. It wasn't a magic recipe, it wasn't a promise, it was a door. And this time, Esteban and María Teresa decided to walk through it. The third time they went to the cultural center, they no longer felt like strangers. Isabel welcomed them as if they'd always belonged. The atmosphere carried a soft but steady energy. Older people, but with light in their eyes. People who didn't talk about back when we were young, but about what they were doing today. At a round table with coffee and open notebooks, the session began. Today we're going to talk about visibility, Isabel said. Not on social media, in life. Who wants to be seen again? Hands rose slowly. María Teresa and Esteban didn't raise theirs, but inside, something lit up. That week, they created an account on a platform. At first, they didn't understand much. Terms like wow, back office, affiliate link, member registration sounded like an alien language. Isabel helped them. Endless patience, simple explanations. Esteban wrote everything down. María Teresa drew arrows between concepts. And this really works? He asked. Depends, Isabel said. Are you trying to become a millionaire or become free? Esteban thought about it. María Teresa answered for him. We want to stop depending on what won't come back. One task was to share a short video explaining who they were. In front of a camera, Esteban protested. Who would want to hear our story? María Teresa said. More people than you think, Isabel replied. But you'll never know if you don't tell it. They recorded the video one night in the kitchen with the phone propped on a tea box. Their voices trembled, but they didn't lie. We are Esteban and María Teresa. We lost everything, home, business, family. But we discovered the one thing you don't lose, if you protect it, is dignity. They didn't post it, not yet. They saved it in the phone gallery. But that night, as they lay down, Esteban said something he hadn't said in a long time. I'm proud of you, and she replied, I'm starting to be proud of myself again. The learning curve was hard. María Teresa sent her first email with no subject. Esteban forgot his password 3 times. In a virtual meeting, they left the microphone muted the entire conversation. Nobody heard us, she laughed. Better, so they didn't hear the nonsense I said, he joked. What began as frustration became tenderness. They laughed at themselves. They supported each other. They discovered each other again, as a team. And slowly, something beautiful happened. They started inspiring others. People who saw them in group sessions began messaging them. "Thank you for telling your story. You made me cry, but you also gave me hope. If you could do it, I can too." And with every message, they healed too. She started fixing her hair like before, wearing makeup for video calls, adjusting her blouses as if she were going back to her old fashion workshop. She began speaking with women her age about health, self-esteem, and the body that changes but doesn't lose its value. Her voice was gentle but firm, and she became a guide without meaning to. One day, a woman from Peru wrote, "Maria Teresa, you made me feel like I still matter. Thank you for existing." She cried quietly, not from sadness, from relief, from recognition. He didn't need an office or employees. A notebook and a video call were enough. He learned to guide others. He shared his story as a warning, but also as a message of rebuilding. "I lost my business," he said once, "but I also lost fear, and that's worth more." He started earning small commissions. It wasn't fortune, but for the first time in years, he felt he didn't need anyone's permission to feel useful. With what they earned, they bought a new coffee maker, a plant, a colorful tablecloth, and a wooden shelf for their books. It wasn't luxury, it was theirs. And every item they added turned the apartment into a home won through effort. Not gifted, not inherited, not borrowed, theirs. Maria Teresa, sitting on the small balcony, wrote in her notebook, "I wouldn't go back. Not for the house, not for the business, not even for the children. Because today I found myself, and I refuse to lose myself for anyone ever again." Esteban hugged her from behind and read over her shoulder. "Is that for posting?" he asked. "No," she said. "It's to remember, in case one day my will starts shaking." He nodded. "Then let me write a line too," he added. "Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember what you're made of." The message arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Short, cold. "Dad, Mom, I need to talk to you. David." Esteban read it 3 times. He didn't reply, he simply placed the phone face down on the table. Maria Teresa watched from the sofa. She didn't ask at first, but after a few minutes she said gently, "Did someone knock on the door again?" "David," he answered with no emotion. "He wants to talk." "And you?" "I don't know." "I do," she said, "but not like before." The next day, Andres wrote on WhatsApp, a message full of emojis and excuses. "Hey, I've been disconnected. How are you? I wanted to see if we could meet soon. There's a lot I want to tell you." Then Camila, a voice message that, for the first time in a long time, sounded genuinely nervous. "Mom, Dad, I know I haven't been there. I know I abandoned you. I can't justify it, but I want to see you. Please, just listen to me." For a moment, Esteban and Maria Teresa became parents again. They felt the old urge to open their arms, but they felt something stronger. The memory of how it felt when their children let them fall. "Are we going to see them?" Esteban asked that night. "We can meet them," Maria Teresa said calmly, "but not for them, for us, to close the cycle. And if they come asking for help, we have nothing left to give, except the truth." Esteban nodded, quietly, but firmly. They met at a simple neutral cafe, not at the children's house, not at theirs. Esteban arrived in a crisp white shirt. Maria Teresa wore a wine-colored dress, her hair pulled back like the old days. They looked serene, present, unbreakable. David arrived first, thinner, paler, then Andres. With a nervous smile, Camila came last, eyes red as if she'd been crying in the car. The first silence was long. "Thank you for coming," David finally said. Esteban looked him in the eyes. "You left first. No rage, only truth." "We messed up," Andres said. "We thought you'd always be there, like a bank, like a cushion. We acted like grown children," David added. "And when you needed us, we weren't there." Camila lowered her head. She didn't speak, just cried quietly. "We don't want money," We don't want anything, Andres continued. We just want to be with you again, be a family again. Maria Teresa breathed in. What she was about to say didn't come from anger. It came from a painful lesson. Family? It's not blood. It's not a last name. It's presence. It's care. And you let go of us. Camila looked up. Don't you love us anymore? We will always love you, Esteban said without hesitation. But we no longer live waiting for you to love us back. There were no dramatic hugs, no movie reconciliation, only understanding, and a new distance, the healthy kind. We're okay, Maria Teresa said. We had to learn how to live without you, and that saved us. We don't need you to come back, Esteban added. But if you ever do, let it be with respect, with truth, and with yourselves already healed. David nodded. Andres said nothing more. Camila only whispered, "Thank you for not hating us." We didn't know how, Maria Teresa replied. And because of that, we could keep going, walking home. Neither spoke for several blocks, until Esteban broke the silence. I'm not at peace because they came. I'm at peace because I no longer need them to have peace. Maria Teresa squeezed his hand. And you know what I feel? What? That in the end we lost everything, so we could find ourselves. Fresh flowers on the table, a new tablecloth, 2 coffee cups served carefully. Maria Teresa watched the clock. Esteban adjusted the camera. Today wasn't just another video call. It was their first public talk at a regional event for older adults. Over 300 people connected from different countries: Colombia, Mexico, the United States, Argentina, and a large group from Latino communities in Florida and New York. The topic, Reborn After 60, the story of a second chance. They weren't nervous. They were ready. Esteban started, his voice firm, clear, not like a speaker, like a man who no longer needs to prove anything. A little over a year ago, we lost everything: business, home, family, dignity, and yes, it hurts to say it, but it hurts even more to stay silent. Maria Teresa looked at him with that knowing glance, like someone who knows exactly what comes next. We thought we were going to die like that, forgotten, broken, empty. But one day, without meaning to, we discovered something. Life doesn't end with a loss. It ends with resignation. They spoke about their pain, yes, but also about how that small invitation to the cultural center changed everything. We didn't know we were walking through a door, Maria Teresa said. Thought it was just another talk, but it was the beginning of a new life. They didn't name names. They didn't explain systems. They didn't talk about income. They only said this. They offered us a tool, not charity, not an empty promise, a tool to help us help ourselves. And without big numbers or shallow promises, they sparked everyone's curiosity. After that talk, dozens of older adults began writing to them. I'm 68 and thought I was useless. Thank you for giving me hope. My daughter abandoned me. I thought I was alone. Thank you for telling your truth. Where can I learn what you learned? They didn't respond with catalogs or speeches. They responded with something more powerful, their story. Over time, they founded a virtual and in-person space called New Roots, a support circle for older adults who wanted to start something, heal, relearn, or simply stop feeling invisible. Nobody comes here to sell anything, Esteban would say. We come to remind ourselves we're still alive. And if we're alive, Maria Teresa would add, then we're still on time. Every week they share testimonies, simple guides, health talks, accessible digital tools, and above all, presence. They weren't just a rebuilt couple anymore. Now they were a seed for many others. One afternoon on the balcony with a cup of coffee, Maria Teresa opened her notebook, the same one she'd been writing in since the day they decided to start over. Want to hear the last thing I wrote? She asked. Always. She read slowly. We didn't regain everything we lost, but we gained something we never had before. self-love, freedom, and the certainty that we don't need the world to applaud us to know we matter. Esteban held her hand. And you know what makes me proudest? What? That we didn't let pain turn us into stone. It turned us into fire. David writes now and then. Andres too. Camila called on their birthday. There wasn't a perfect reconciliation, but it no longer hurts, because they no longer depend on them. And if one day they come back, Esteban asked, then we'll give them coffee, and we'll look them in the eyes with respect. Because we came back too, but to ourselves. A woman from Texas wrote them a week after the event. I don't know exactly what you did, I don't know how you did it, but I want to learn. Where do I start? Maria Teresa replied with a single sentence. Start by deciding you still can. This story is not about a company, not about a business model, not about a network. It's about two people who refused to die while alive, who said enough to pain, and chose to start over right where they were. They didn't have youth, they didn't have money, they didn't have support, they had decision. If this story moves something inside you, don't let it stay as emotion. Emotion fades, decision changes your life. Ask yourself, what if I start too? What would I do if I discovered a door like the one they walked through? You don't need to know everything. You just need to take the first step. And if you want to know how they did it, ask them. They'll be there, not to give you the answer, but to remind you that you can find your own.